Okay, let's talk about the distributive property. So our first example says simplify the expression. It's an expression because it doesn't have an equal sign, and we have some operations happening. We have multiplication, we have addition. So when we have a number or anything sitting outside of parentheses and there's no operation between them, that means you are multiplying. And because the -2 is next to the parentheses, that means that everything in the parentheses is being multiplied by -2. So not just the 3x, but also the 7. So we're going to distribute that -2 over both the terms in the parentheses. So it's going to be multiplied with 3x, and it's also going to be multiplied with the 7. The parentheses end, there's nothing else after it, so we can stop distributing the -2 because we've covered everything. So now we can just multiply. -2 times 3x, we get -6x. -2 times 7, we get -14. And I'm going to write that as -14 because it's as simple as it gets. That's what it would look like on a multiple choice test. You could have also written -6x plus -14, and that would also be accurate. This is just what you'll see in a book or on a test or on a worksheet if the answers are listed. Okay, example 2, first glance is a lot more complex. We've got a lot going on. Directions still say simplify the expression, so it's not an equation. There's nothing to solve for. We're just simplifying it. So when you simplify, you follow the order of operations. Inside the parentheses, there's nothing we can combine. These are all unlike terms. We have an m, we have an n, we have a constant. They can't be combined. Next thing we need to do is multiply. And be careful when you distribute this 4. The 4 is being multiplied with everything inside the parentheses, but it's a -4. So you might want to either circle it as a -4 or switch it to adding the opposite so that it's clear to you that it's a -4. And then we're going to multiply it with each term inside the parentheses. When the parentheses end, the multiplication ends. You do not multiply this -4 with the 5. You do not multiply the -4 with the 2n. That's an addition sign there. So where the parentheses stop, the multiplying stops. So let's go ahead and get our multiplying done. -4 times n. There's an invisible 1 there, so it's -4 times 1m gives us -4m. This is a -3n. If you need to change it to adding the opposite to help you remember that, do it. -4 times -3n is positive 12n. A negative times a negative is a positive. We're going to multiply it with this -6, and again, if you need to change it to adding the opposite to help you remember that it is a -6, please do that. -4 times -6, positive 24. Make sure you bring down the terms that we have not used yet. We have not used this +5, and we have not used the 2n plus all of that stuff. Now we need to look for like terms. So I like to go in alphabetical order. M comes before n, so we just have one term that's a -4m. There's no other m's to combine it with, so that comes down first. Then we can add the n's. We have 2n and 12n, which gives us 14n. Remember, the n is like a label. I have 2 of them and 12 of them. Altogether, I have 14 of them. The label doesn't change. And then we have 2 constants. We have 24 and 5. 24 plus 5 gives us 29. So we have different terms that cannot be combined. That's as simplified as it gets. So probably the trickiest part about this one is just not to get overwhelmed by all the things that are going on. Break it into little pieces, and also pay really close attention to those subtraction signs and remember that the sign goes with whatever's behind it. So maybe changing things to adding the opposite could be a useful strategy. So our third example, same set of instructions, simplify the expression. It looks a little different because now we have 5 minus, and then in parentheses, 4y plus 8. There's no number sitting outside of the parentheses that we can see right here to be multiplied with everything inside. Nothing that we can see to be distributed, but there is a number here that we're just too lazy to write, and that number is 1. This is a negative 1 that is going to be distributed with everything in the parentheses. So anytime you don't see something sitting there, you can think of it as 1 times whatever, because that doesn't change it. 1 times 13 is still 13. And the only other thing is to remember that this is a negative 1, because when you subtract, you can change it to addition by adding the opposite. So now when we simplify, inside the parentheses, these are not like terms. We can't add them, so we move to our multiplication, and we have negative 1 times 4y, which gives us negative 4y. Negative 1 times 8, which gives us negative 8, and I'm going to write it using the subtraction. Don't forget to bring down the 5 out front that we have not used. You could write it as 5 minus 4y minus 8, or 5 plus negative 4y minus 8. It doesn't matter. These are constants. Don't forget this is a negative 8, and we can combine those. The negative 4y, there's no other y's to combine with it, so it just comes straight down. 5 plus negative 8, negative 3, and we are done. So if you ever see a negative outside of the parentheses, just remember that it's a negative 1 that you're going to have to distribute. So last example, it's a little bit unique. It's not one you'll see often, but I want to make sure you see it just in case you run into it and wonder what to do. So we're still simplifying the expression. There's no equal sign. It's not an equation we have to solve. We have now the parentheses first, and there is a multiplication symbol and a negative 3. So this isn't minus 3. This is times negative 3. So this is what's being distributed. It's just on the other side. So you can do two things. You can either recognize that you're just going to multiply it this way instead, or if you want to rearrange it, we can change the order that we multiply in because, for example, 5 times 6 is the same as 6 times 5. Multiplication order doesn't matter. So if it helps you to rewrite it with the number first, that's fine. Don't change the order of anything in here, though. You might accidentally switch the signs. So we have a negative 3 times 7, a negative 3 times negative 2r. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. Negative 3 times negative 2r is positive 6r. And then if you wanted to put it in the order where we have the variable term first and then the constant last, you would rewrite it as 6r minus 21. If you were looking for the answer on a list, on a worksheet, this is what it would look like. So you need to know that this is equivalent to this. If it were a multiple choice on a test, this is the form it would take. So just recognize that these are equivalent. This is just the more traditional order it would be written in. So that's the distributive property. Hopefully that helps, and good luck with your math.